today more than ever, people need to reconnect with their own bodies in the physical world. A movement practice can do just that. Reconnect people with their own skin.
Okay, so I'm here with Andres Vesga, my movement teacher for many years now. Probably about 5 years that I've been training with you, I would say. And I wanted to invite you to join me and just have a conversation about movement because I think the philosophy and the type of training that I have done has really opened up my thinking about the world of movement, and it's influenced a lot of what I do in my work with Mandarin Oriental. So I thought it would be good to have a conversation with you and share with others a little bit about this journey that we've been on together around movement and how you've influenced me and some of your background and your thinking around it. So thank you, first of all, for joining me today.
Thank you, my friend. I'm very glad that you invited me because you are someone that I respect and appreciate a lot.
Thank you, likewise. So very happy to have you here today and that we can talk about an interesting topic. So I thought I would start by talking a little bit about how I found you, which was originally by discovering your teacher, Ido Portal, who, because I had always had a background in fitness, throughout my career, and even early in my career, I was a personal trainer and was very interested in fitness and general exercise training and things like that. And then I stumbled on a video of Ido Portal, this movement teacher out of Israel, who was talking about his method of teaching and training called the Ido Portal Method. And seeing that video, it was just kind of like, wow, his way of thinking just really changed the way that I saw my own exercise program, the way that I train my own mind and body, and the way that I think about movement in general. And so when I came to Hong Kong, I was looking for somebody who had that link to Ido Portal, and that eventually led me to you because you have a connection to Ido Portal. But maybe rather than me talking about it, you can explain a little bit about how you came to begin with Ido and what is the Ido Portal method, and what's the foundation of the teaching that you do.
Right. Yes. So I met Ido, or I knew about him. I found out about him through my wife. That was pretty much 10 years ago, or almost 10 years ago. At the time, I was a fitness trainer in Hong Kong. And my story a little bit is that I'd been a fitness instructor, trainer, or presenter, starting from Colombia, where I'm from. I started at about 16 years old. However, even if that's my job and I was teaching, I was teaching from the very basic, as you said, step and aerobics, went to cycling. I did everything that you can imagine in fitness through the years. But also on the other side, since I'm 8 years old, since I was 8, I was always interested in as many things as I could learn physically. So I went through martial arts when I was a kid. Then I went through dance. I studied ballet, contemporary dance. I competed in aerobic gymnastics, and then back in Hong Kong, I was training a bit of MMA as well. So this aspect of learning stuff and training in different ways has always been something that I was looking for, even if I was teaching fitness. So then my wife, Xiomara, she is the one that sent me this video that pretty much probably happened to you. She sent me this video and said, you need to look at this guy. This guy is for you. So she knew me pretty well, because I also was very hooked with this guy that was in the video was doing this type of animalistic type of movements, crawling on the floor. But it was also not just the type of movement, but you could see this quality of movement, this care of the details, the hand placement. He was very careful and soft in the way he was moving, and it was very intriguing. It was a mix of animalistic motion with martial arts and handstands, etc. So I started to look for this guy and see more videos, and each video was more interesting than the previous one. As you said, his physicality and the way he moves is backed by a strong philosophy and very powerful ideas about exercises that are quite in a way new for many of us in different disciplines. It might be fitness or even martial arts or sports. He had this other idea of taking movement as a whole, not with limits or labels, and being able, to open up and learning as many things as possible, and a lot more philosophy behind it.
I think having a visual aspect of seeing someone who does this broad kind of movement training and what they're capable of, and now, I mean, I see it every week in class when I watch you as our teacher. But it just opened up my mind to the possibilities of what the potential is that you can do with your body, and how you can expand on what your body is capable of in a way that goes so far beyond what the fitness paradigm was really all about.
Yeah, 100%. And it shows you how, when you live in a box and you're doing, whatever it is, you and I may be into fitness. So your squat, your bicep curls, lunges, and then you have these theories of having a straight back all the time, and neutral, and squat, but don't squat all the way down. All these things that we create in fitness, and it's like, okay, this is the way movement is supposed to be. And then you look outside this box, and then you see people moving with such freedom, and moving the spine in different ways, and crawling on the floor, and bringing the knees to the floor, and etc. And reminds you that, wow, you mean the body can move in so many different ways. But we've been repeating ourselves in any discipline. So it was captivating, and it reminded me many things that I used to like before, right? And like dance, for example, and other things that kind of reminds you that the body has so many possibilities and can be so interesting. Even in my career in fitness, through the years, you get to a point of thinking, okay, this is it, straight back. I know all the exercises, I know the technique correctly. So you kind of just go through the motions day by day, and as many people as well, they repeat themselves all the time, do the same exercises, do the same angles, and you go through this routine that sometimes you're not even thinking about, you're not even present these days. In fitness, people go in a machine, there's a TV in front of you that distracts you. So you kind of, it's like if you leave the body there to do some maintenance, and your mind goes away. And then someone like Ido brings back this being present, brings back this quality of movement, open up to more possibilities and learning more and more skills. And that's what hooked me. As I said, was about 10 years ago, and just finishing the story. Since then, I became an online student of him, and meeting him through the year several times a year, and kind of becoming a sort of a close student in a smaller circle of his, and learning quite a lot. And even these days, I am actually doing some online teaching for him to other students in his platform.
Yeah. So the difficult thing about this, or what I always struggle with, because I'm sure a lot of people listening to this still have no idea what we're really talking about when we talk about movement, is
Yeah.
it's so hard to explain what it is that we do. And I attend class with Andres 3 days a week. The classes are 2 hours long, and I tell people, oh, I'm going to movement class, and people don't really know what that is, and it's kind of hard to explain. And maybe if they see us one day, they see a piece of it and they think they know what it is, like, oh, okay, so it's like dance, or oh, it's like martial arts, or oh, it's like acrobatics or animal movements. And I always say, yeah, it's all of those things and so much more. How do you explain to people what it is that you teach and what you do?
Yeah, you're very right. This is very hard to explain, or can be a bit hard to explain. But through the years, I learned, I understood that that's not a bad thing. A bad thing. It's not so simple. So basically, to me, a movement practice is having this curiosity to learn about your body, to learn about how to use your body in so many different ways, and to explore the possibilities that you have with this organism that you are, in a world where people tend to separate those two things and thinking the body is just a thing that you kind of have to maintain functional. So maybe if you run every day, the heart is pumping and that's enough. But what is important is the brain that you're going to use, not when you train, but you're going to use your brain to other stuff, your job, or maybe reading a book. But actually, your body and your mind are one thing. Your body is also part of who you are. And there's so much potential to discover and to learn through your physical body that can make your life a lot more interesting. So there are many layers of this. So one layer is that, being curious, okay? There was a definition of philosophy that I like a lot, and I compare a lot to movement. So there's a definition of philosophy that says that philosophy is scratching where you have no itch, where there's no itching, something like that, right? You just want to ask questions for the sake of asking questions about life. Where do we came from? Why there is a moon? Why do we exist, etc. So philosophy is kind of that, right? Just asking questions that you don't really need to ask. And movement is something very similar. It's like, yeah, there's probably no reason to try to learn to climb a wall. Probably there's no reason to learn to do a handstand, or to learn to crawl on the floor, or land on the floor and roll, etc., or many other things, balance on a rail, or juggling, and more and more and more. So it's not like a one simple answer like you will find in fitness. Okay, do this because it will give you a six-pack, and do this other because it will make your biceps stronger. And some people just are used to, okay, if you give me a reason, I do it. If you don't give me, you don't. But this is more a vision like perhaps most kids will have, and you will find children being very interested in many things. They see a rope and they would like to climb it, or they see a tree and they would like to climb it. And they see a grown-up juggling and they want to learn to juggle, and they just want to try everything. I have my 7-year-old daughter that, I ask her, okay, what do you want? Do you want football classes, or you want a taekwondo classes? And my daughter is like, give me everything. I want to learn everything. And perhaps in the future, it's not going to be like that, and she will start to focus on certain things. But that spirit is something that we have in movement. The reason is because instead of dedicating myself in one thing, yoga, CrossFit, boxing, I want to dedicate things to myself. I mean, I'll be the one that is going to become a better mover, not a label that tells me I am a yogi and this is what I do. I don't play football because what I do is yoga. Don't ask me to climb a wall because I'm very, ask me to do a back bend. But how about someone that has no labels and spends their life, using this body and learn to do so many things with it. So that's one layer. But there are many others, like longevity, like brain health, for example, and so on. Yeah.
I think that was a big part of what inspired me about seeing this interview with Ido, was hearing him talk about how fitness does kind of put you into a specific box. So like even if I think about our hotel fitness centers and the traditional approaches to how you would design a fitness center, we usually have smaller gyms in a hotel than maybe a commercial sports club. So we have a limited amount of space, and traditionally the approach would be to fill that space with as many machines as possible. And you look at those machines and they're basically designed to limit movement. They're designed to kind of lock you into one pattern, and you just repeat that one pattern over and over again, and you get stronger in that one, micro pattern that particular machine can give you. And when I heard Ido talk about this idea of, really expanding your horizon to movement as a broad philosophy, not looking at it as the specific patterns that are a part of yoga or the specific patterns that are a part of weightlifting, but really just thinking about opening up the possibilities of movement. Yeah, it just right away changed the way that I think about my own training, and kind of like you said, yeah, it's like what do I want to learn how to do with my body. And I think another thing that he said that really resonated with me is that certain movements are doors or windows that open up possibilities into other movement patterns. So there are certain things that we learn through this training, and things that you've been teaching me, that you learn one thing and then it allows you access to other things, so that curiosity kind of leads you down different paths that open up new doors and new paths that you never could have explored before. And maybe a simple example is like the squat, like an Asian squat position, which is something I couldn't do when I first started training with you. I couldn't get down and sit in a squat position. But once you have that position, I mean, you realize there's a reason why a lot of cultures and a lot of societies use that position all the time. And it's a very practical position to be able to have and to be able to access in your body. And once you can do that, it opens up all kinds of possibilities in terms of how you get down on the floor, how you get up from the floor, how you pick something up, how you rest when you're tired, everything. It just opens up a whole new world to you.
Yeah, and also this idea of, for example, the squat, as you mentioned, in these cultures, there are ancient cultures that use it. In reality, any culture, if you go back enough, we will use the squat, not because they knew it was physically better for your joints and your whole body, but because it was necessary. Chairs weren't invented yet, right? And people were outside, and most of their work was farming, hunting, and gathering. And they will have to pick up stones and pick up fruits and etc. Cook in a squat and eat, etc. Toilet. And so it's more like through the years, and when Western culture started to, invented the chair and invented the toilet, and we started to find out jobs that were not farming or hunting, but you have to sit and do some maths and write down things. And without noticing, people started to lose things that they didn't know they were losing, and they didn't know they were even important. So bringing us back to these days, there are people that might be convinced that they're healthy. They might be running on their bike an hour a day, right? But then they go back to the office and they sit 8 hours a day, and then they go back home and sit on a dinner table and end up laying down in bed. So this position of sitting on the bike, sitting on the chair, sitting on the dinner table, and sitting on the toilet, basically you just create this little pattern and cast and shape that through years the body starts to get that shape more and more locked in. And the day comes that for a reason, they go to a movement class and somebody asks them to squat all the way down, and they try for the first time in 30 years and realize, wow, I cannot do that, or my knees hurt if I try. And then they realize they lost things that they might have when they were kids. And there are many examples of that. And so the important thing to understand is that our biology, our bodies has this potential. We are born with certain ranges of motion and possibilities to move in many ways. The shoulder has this amazing range of motion to go all around the spine, the knees, but through different practices that limit their movement, we start to lose this potential to move, and we start to lock up. And then the result is people with hunchbacks, people with shoulder injuries and limited movement, knee pain, knee surgeries, hip replacement surgeries, because they are not really keeping their body healthy, which to do it, what you need to do is actually move a lot in many ways, not even moving just a lot, because you can see a runner that they can run again every day, but it's just one pattern, one drill, one range of motion that will give you eventually some problems if you don't expand the practice and take the body into the other possibilities that they should have.
Yeah, this is what we see in our spas and fitness centers because of the modern life that we all live, and there's very few people that are immune to this or outside of this. Most of the guests who come into our hotels or into our spas or into our fitness centers, they all are going to have similar challenges in terms of limited mobility, limited range of motion, tightness in certain areas. You know, we all spend too much time sitting in chairs, too much time staring down at screens, too much time with our, hands forward on a keyboard, shoulders internally rotated. So almost everybody has similar challenges that we're all dealing with. And I think that is a big part of the Ido Portal philosophy that is not necessarily accessible to everyone. Because, you spend hours in these practices, immersed in these practices and working on your own movement practices and things like that. And for some of your students, we try to get our 3 days a week where we're training with you, and those training durations are longer, let's say, than your typical fitness program. So already that's a little bit of an advantage. But it's hard for the average person in modern life to dedicate the amount of time required to, really expand on their practice in the way that someone like you has or that Ido has. So what do you recommend to the average person who's kind of sitting at a desk for 8 hours a day or 10 hours a day at work? How can they incorporate more of this movement philosophy into their life?
Well, before I answer that one, I want to say that one of the reasons why people are not really taking care of their body in the best way possible is because they trust trainers, right? Just as you trust your teeth to a dentist. You go there and whatever the dentist tell you they need to change a tooth, you're like, okay, you believe them. What can you do? So I think everything comes from people like me, trainers that are improves our knowledge on what is actually important for someone. Because at this point, we are in a place where most people believe that the best exercise is going to a gym and lift some weights and run a little bit, and pretty much that's it. Maybe stretch a little bit. So we have packaged the physical practice into 20, 30, 50 exercises at most that people should do. and spread it like if it's a gospel, and everybody should do the same. So I think that's one of the major problems. And then you see that the only people that move outside these exercises, outside a flat back squat and a lunge or a run or a jog or a bicycle run, right, is there are people that chose like a profession of something different. So only dancers will explore the spine, right? Only martial artists will try to kick high. Only if you actually play football, you will try to learn how to juggle. But if you're not a dancer, and if you're not, this label of a climber, and then you just go to the gym. And I think this is what most people do. They just go to the gym. So gyms and fitness trainers have probably most of the physical active population, at least one big part. And most trainers perhaps could do a little better in expanding their material and give people and teach them and educate them a little better in what is possible and what is healthier for them. And that starts for trainers to also educate ourselves a little more. And I've gone through some gyms, and I've seen 60, 70-year-old ladies with their trainer, and the trainer sit them in one of the machines you talk, these machines to do these chest exercises. And I'm like, perhaps a 70-year-old lady doesn't need to train like a bodybuilder pumping their chest, right? Perhaps that's not what she wants. A 70-year-old lady might need more or get more benefits from balancing exercises, from taking care of those knees, from squatting and actually getting down to the floor, because we know that when people age to a certain point, if they fall, they're going to break their hips because they don't know how to fall. They don't know how to get on the floor. They're going to break their wrists. And there are a lot of more consequences that trying to copy the exercise that a 20-year-old kid wants to do just to pump muscle and look bigger. That doesn't make any sense to me. So that's one of the issues. I think the trainers, which is who people trust, they're still in this idea of a cookie maker type of exercise for everybody.
Yeah. And before you move on to the other topic, because what you said really speaks to what I have found to be most transformative about this kind of practice and this kind of training. It's like when you do go to the gym to lift weights, or you do start running, or you do start yoga, and I've done all of those things at different times in my life. And when you do start those activities, the first few months is incredible. If you haven't been doing any kind of weight training, or you haven't been doing cardio training, or you haven't been doing some stretching or mobility exercise, you go in and you start doing something that your body isn't used to doing, and you feel this kind of adaptation, and your body starts to get used to it, and you suddenly feel stronger and more capable, and you have that potential. But then I think the problem is then people spend the rest of their lives in that one activity, trying to eke out the smallest improvements that they can, but the returns that they get out of it get smaller and smaller as they go on and as they continue with that practice. Whereas in the practice that we have, and in what the training that I do with you, because we're always doing something different, we're always in that period of the first few months where you get most of the benefit. And we're always trying something new, and then feeling your body and your brain rewire itself and adapt to new patterns and new activities. And, kind of like you were saying that, the martial artist is the only one who kicks high, and the footballer is the only one who juggles a football. And, we're doing all of those things and learning all of those things a little bit. And every time, because we're always in that steep part of the learning curve at the beginning, we get so much benefit. And unlike running or yoga or weight training or any of the other fitness practices that I've done, this movement training, I can count the continuous improvement in different things that I can do with my body that I couldn't do before. So you really feel a significant difference in the benefits that you get out of it, just by virtue of the constantly changing nature of the practice.
Yeah, that's a good point. This transferability power is amazing, because the way we try to do our practice is to, as I said before, understanding how our body works, understanding about footwork and the way I stand and the way I react, and starting to wire my body and my brain and give them so much knowledge that even if you change the situation, you have some basics that if I go and play tennis, I have certain base already. I have good footwork. I'm light on my feet. I'm quick. I know how to react. But if I go and play football, I can also transfer certain of these attributes. Or if you go from working with us some crawling and a bit of environmental practice, then one day you go and take it to a climbing practice and you realize, oh, actually it's the first time I do this and I'm not doing bad at all. And maybe it happens a lot that the people that are teaching you will say, are you sure you haven't done this before? And it's because you are preparing yourself and getting some knowledge as well, not just a repetitive movement. But I try and we try to actually educate students and educate yourself. And why are we doing this way? What is the way to do it? And what's going on in my body? How to adapt in a situation, which sometimes in practices don't happen the same. So to give you an example, depending on the trainer that you have, you can go to a boxing coach, and this boxing coach might just give you some gloves and, let's start to do a light sparring and let's just feel what is to fight. Not much learning there. The other one, might want to give you a feeling of punching, just holding pads, hits as hard as you can, give you an experience, give you a sweat, but also not learning much. Or you can go to a coach that maybe not let you put gloves for the first 3 months, right? But will teach you how to stand properly, will teach you how to move with your feet on space, with a partner and distance, and a bit more breaking down each of the patterns with the patterns and the parts of the equation. So the day you have some gloves on, you have a base and you understand better what this is about. And that can be an example of a learning process that we try to apply to movement as well, and anything we do. So yeah, we try to be as educational as possible that can teach this individual how to move, not just in what we do, but you go out there on a Sunday and you play some beach ball and you're actually doing pretty well and improving things that you haven't done in a while, because our practice, develops you in so many different ways.
Yeah, so going back to the question about modern life and how we counteract modern life, we got off on a tangent there for a second, but
yes.
But what's your advice for people that are spending a lot of their week and they're not able to spend significant time moving, at least during the week where they're working, they have to go home and take care of their family, they're spending long hours at a computer. What can you do in a small amount of time to make the biggest impact? And I know that's not kind of the approach of the movement philosophy, but where does somebody begin if they don't have a lot of time to dedicate to it?
Okay, so let me answer with different options. Okay, so unfortunately, this philosophy that came from my teacher Ido Portal is quite new, right? We've just been in this for about 10 years, a little bit more, and so of course we're not a spread. It's not so easy to to go to your neighborhood and find a movement studio. However, there are certain people practicing around there that you can look and see if there's, even if if it's not a movement teacher like Ido and people close to Ido like myself, there might be people that have starting to get this philosophy or having a more comprehensive, more generalistic type of practice that will teach you how to move well in different ways and keep that body healthy and strong and mobile and coordinated and flexible and agile and make you enjoy about your own physicality. So that's one way. Another way, of course, if you don't mind me say it, is my teacher Ido Portal has this online platform. So there's people that study. I'm one of the teachers there and study with me. And some people just say, okay, I can only train 1 hour, but we write down a program for them and supervise and work along them and help them. So that's another way, going to idoportal.com. So online is another option these days. The technology allows for people to get some help even if they're not close to you. Okay, now probably the majority of people that they have their day in the office and they really don't know what to do. One thing that is for sure is that not because you don't have 4 hours to dedicate to your body and train, that doesn't mean you cannot get benefits out of 1 hour anyway. So as hard as it is to explain in a minute or in 2 minutes what you can do, the message is, out of all these minutes that you and I have been talking, is your body can do so many things and you can enjoy it so much. You can learn so many things with your body. If you're 20 or 40 or 60 or 70, that it can be a journey that doesn't have to be today I'm gonna learn everything about movement, but you can take your first steps. So to give you an example, if you take some time for running, you run a lot, you probably know that your body is quite stiff, okay? You have some, your knees might give you some trouble, or your back, you're not moving it enough. So maybe working your flexibility and mobility is something that might be good for your body right now. So let's find something that contrasts this activity that you've been doing for so long. So contrast is very important. Go to the two sides. If you're someone that your daily activity, you take 1 yoga class a day, you might be quite flexible, but perhaps if that's all you do, you might have some issues with strength that you don't practice enough, maybe agility, maybe power. So you might want to find something that actually contrasts that as well. And you can have flexibility, but also strength. And the same you can say about coordination, and you can say also about sports and activities that demand reaction, etc., and not repetitive, and so on. So if we think about different disciplines, you can call them, you have yoga here, you have Brazilian jiu-jitsu, which is very popular these days, you got boxing, you got climbing, you got dance. So there are many activities that people can, you got tennis, you got football, that people can actually pursue and realize, you're going to enjoy, even if it's just learning how to rollerblade or something, going to skateboard, just learning new stuff that keep your body crisp and your mind sharp, because you're learning new skills and developing more and more. So that's one thing with that hour that you have. Then on the other,
I just want to add on to that, because I think this is a good example of a clear distinction between the traditional approaches to fitness and this movement philosophy. Because if you go into a gym, usually what you see is a lot of strong people lifting weights. And if you go into a yoga studio, you'll see a lot of flexible people practicing yoga and trying to get more flexible. And one of the things I really appreciate about your class and what you do with us is you see there are some people in our class who have that yoga background, who have incredible flexibility, incredible mobility. But with them, you're encouraging them to work on strength, to work on coordination, to work on rhythm, to work on other things that they might not have had from their yoga training. And then for somebody like me, where maybe I'm relatively strong or I'm relatively fit in certain ways, but I don't have that range of motion, I don't have that mobility, or I don't have that flexibility. And so you'll encourage me to work on things that will improve my mobility and my movement in that way. And so everybody is kind of working on the thing that they need the most, as opposed to this specialist mentality, like you say, of I'm a yogi, I'm a weightlifter, and you're just focusing on that one pattern, and to the detriment of all the other things that you could be doing with your body.
That's right, because you cannot lie to yourself. If you just do one thing and become really good at that thing, but that's all you do, you're going far away from other things. If, as you said, your thing is flexibility and you do so much yoga, you become so flexible, you're all the time moving away from the other side of the spectrum, which in this case, we can call it strength. But there are many others, right? Coordination, agility, power, etc. that you're never practicing if all you do is stretch. And it's not just moving away from those, but at some point, it might give us some problems. And it happens a lot in someone that specializes in one thing, right? If you're a yogi for many years, it's very common to have certain injuries. If you're a football player, your knees might not last too long. Okay, maybe at 40, your knees are already gone, and so on. So everything that you put so much into it might actually be detrimental, even if at the beginning it might give you so much health and joy. The price might be you are destroying your body without noticing until it's too late. On the other side, if you open yourself to learning and to try to enjoy so many other things, I think it can make your life quite interesting and joyful, and will give you this non-stop curiosity of, hey, I want to do that and I want to learn that as well, even if you don't become the best at it. It comes to my mind Stephen Jepson, which is a guy that you can find on YouTube, for example, and there's something that says something like never leave the playground, I think is the videos that he has. But by this time he might be 74 or 76, and he's a very interesting guy that he gives himself like a task each year, right? So this year I'm going to learn to juggle, and the next year I'm going to learn to roller skate, and then and that's exactly the approach. You can be 70 or 80 or 40 or 20, but you can always enjoy to learn more things, and that will keep this body more alive and more useful. And for those of us that think in the future, or maybe already getting there into a little advanced age, then you realize what you want is a body that is as healthy and as functional as possible as you get older. That maybe a 20-year-old are not thinking about that, and they just want to smash their body. I don't mind if when I'm 50, my body destroyed, but 50 is not so far as people think. So taking care of your body is so important.
Yeah, well, that makes me want to ask you about the community aspect of the group that you have formed here in Hong Kong, because we have 20-year-olds in the class, and we have 50 and up training alongside each other, different age demographics. So, some of the people who come to your class are already serious athletes from another domain, or a master yoga teacher, a dancer, a martial artist, and things like that. And some of your students are people who maybe haven't really done anything in a while, and they're kind of starting from a lower level of fitness and movement capacity. And yet everybody somehow manages to kind of train side by side and work on things together. How would you describe that element of the practice and of the group that you have here in Hong Kong?
Yeah, that's one of the things that I'm most proud of, and it brings me a lot of joy to have this diversity in the group and being able to offer a practice that each one can appreciate and find value in it. So the idea is that our practice is so diverse that even if you are really good in A, B, or C, there's always level for you to improve those things, and you're gonna feel great and you're gonna enjoy it if you already come with a background and you're strong or you're flexible. But our practice is always exploring so many areas that for sure you're gonna find other skills or other areas where you actually struggle. And here, the important thing is if you have a mentality of understanding that every time you find something that is hard for you is an opportunity to improve, versus when someone sees something that struggles and say, oh, I don't want that, not for me. That's not for me. I'm good at this and I'm going to stay here. And then you stop yourself from growing, from discovering new things and new joys, just because you don't want to go through this process of feeling a beginner again, or like you have to learn something from zero. So of course, not everybody is for everything. And some people just, even if they find and they understand that a practice like this is important, they will not come. I have an uncle back in Colombia that he rides a bike every day. And I remember he saw one of my videos talking about these things. And he's like, yeah, Andres, congratulations, keep going. But I'm stick with my bike. I'm just happy here. And I understand that some people just don't want to go through that process. It's not for them. But others like myself, like yourself, actually finds it so interesting and so many benefits that you're not going to go somewhere else, because you understand that you get a lot more from a practice like this. And also you can combine it, of course, like yourself, you come 3 times, we train 3 times together, but you on Saturdays might go and have your beach ball playing, and on Sundays you go surfing. I mean, it's not like you're stuck in our practice. No, you have all this life to enjoy, right? This is just one part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that is a part of that mind shift of this kind of practice, because we're almost brought up to feel like what you should do is find something that you're good at and then try to be the best that you can be at that one thing. There's kind of this, I don't know, cultural push towards specialization that everybody should try. As kids, when kids are very young, we think about encouraging them to do a lot of different things because we have to find out what they're really good at and what they like. But then that as kids get a little bit older, it tends to narrow down, and it's kind of like, okay, once a kid finds their thing that they found some skill in and that they're good at and they like it, then they can spend their whole life in that one activity. And when you embrace this kind of approach, what you're describing, it just makes you realize, I think, in a way that even transcends our training in our classes, because I feel this flowing over into other areas of my life, that you realize the benefits that you get of putting yourself into a situation where you're not comfortable or you're not good at something and struggling with that for a while and trying to solve those problems and overcome those challenges. And out of that, so much comes, and it's kind of like you described, the bigger the struggle, the more reward that there is to get out of that. Whereas when you get to the point that you're already good at something and you're trying to get more out of it, but now it's already easy for you, it's hard to squeeze more juice out of that fruit, whereas we're in that struggle phase where there's a lot to be gotten out of it. What do you think? I mean, we've talked a little bit about moving more. People should be trying to incorporate more movement into their life. And you also talked about moving in different ways. What about the quality of movement? Is there anything that you would say about how can people think about quality in terms of the movement? Because that was one of the things that drew both of us to Ido, was seeing the quality of his movement. How should somebody think about that in their movement practice?
That's a good point. Quality of movement can come from two sides. One, what you see, and two is what is happening. So what you see in someone that is really good at something, this quality of movement, people might not know how to explain it. Like when somebody sees something, someone like Cristiano Ronaldo playing, or Federer playing, or a great dancer, they just look great. And probably most people won't know how to explain. You're not a dancer, but you know how to recognize a good dancer. So what's there? What's happening? Why that looks good and the other one not so good? Or if I do it, it won't look as good. So the way we think, the way I see it, it has a lot to do with efficiency. Something that I've been learning a lot with Ido, which is usually people carry a lot of tension on us, okay? Not even when we train or when we move, every day, when sitting so many hours, your tension, okay, you're on the computer, your neck, your back, your lower back, already gathering tension, your hip flexors start to, becoming shorter and stiffer and so on. So by the time you stand up and walk back home, you're carrying that tension with you. That also is stressful, that also it becomes other things that you don't even recognize. And on top of that, if we think about, so tension can be just in walking. And you can see people, if you have the right eye and you've seen enough people and pay attention, you can see so many different ways of walking. People with arms are relaxed, others are walking with arms stiff, hunchback, dragging the feet on the floor, which is something that, I talk a lot about that, like this tiredness all the time carrying with you. So already the quality is already there just by walking, just by standing. And moving is the same. As soon as you do something that you are haven't done enough, you don't have any practice or enough practice yet, you will do it with certain tension. Let's say if you juggle a ball, someone like Maradona, Ronaldinho juggling a ball, you will see their arms are relaxed, their hands are relaxed, their face is loose, their shoulders. So it's not just juggling the ball, but the whole thing looks so easy, so effortless. And it has to do with this efficiency of movement of the body, where the idea when you do anything is to use just as much energy as you need to the task, but no more than that. I don't need my face to be tense when I do a push-up. I don't need my neck to be tight if I'm working on my knees. And so a lot of what we call quality of movement has to do with that, has to do with learning to release tension as much as possible and be efficient with it. That already will create a huge change on the way people move. And again, it can be just by standing. I have people stand in class, for example, as you know, I will have people stand tall and ask them to relax. And then you look at their arms and they're floating in the air. They're not really hanging. So just by standing and you thinking you're relaxed, you are full of tension. So that's one of the things. And after that, there are, of course, many things that we teach that people might not be aware of: how to jump, how to land, how to roll on the floor. Of course, there are many cues and ways to use their body that people never practice. Maybe when they were kids, they will roll on the floor and try to jump off a tree, but when they're 30 or 40, that's gone. You don't remember that, so you don't even know how to jump properly. But I will say most of when we talk about movement quality has to do with that, with efficiency.
Great answer. I see myself in a lot of those comments because,
Oh yeah.
it's first you learn the task, which at the beginning you have a lot of tension because, you're struggling, your face is all grimace, you're trying to learn it. And then you learn the task, but then you can spend years learning how to get that effortlessness and how to relax the
Yeah.
parts of your body that you don't need. And if I think about my own practice, I mean, in my training with you, I've learned how to do a handstand. I've learned how to juggle a football. I've learned how to balance on a rail. I've learned all of these things, but being able to relax everything else while you're doing those things is something I'm still struggling with and still working on. So it's a process.
Yeah, it's definitely, yeah, it is a process, and it's very normal for some things, especially if there's, for example, fear involved. It's normal to get tight, right? Like if you're learning to box for the first time, it will make you flinch and be afraid. It's understandable if you're on a rail and you are afraid of falling. But then on the other side is also through our practice, when we make it a habit, not just doing the move, but making important how we do the move and how we do the task. And then we talk about certain principles and this transferability of once you learn certain principles of movement, once you learn a new task, if you've been practicing enough, then even a new task won't look as new. If you start to use your brain and say, okay, this looks a little bit like something I've done before, so my feet are going to be this way and I'm going to relax my arms, and it's a matter of habit that hopefully will make you, even if you're learning something new, it won't be as new as when you started the practice, because we are learning more and more to move better. So then things with time are not going to be as hard as it was at the beginning of this journey. Yeah,
For sure. And you talked earlier about going out and finding a movement teacher, and one of the things that I have felt is the value of having a teacher. So thank you, Andres, for first of all, thank you for today, for spending some time with me talking about movement. It's great to hear your thoughts on these ideas, and they really have shaped the way that I think about not just my own training, but also how I think about my work, how I think about life in general. I mean, really has had an impact on me. But the value of having a teacher who can bring the diversity of different areas that we can explore and that we discover together, that can bring an outside perspective on the quality of movement and coach us along. It has really been invaluable, I think, for all of your students. So really appreciate you as a teacher, and yeah, thank you for sharing these ideas with me today.
no, you honor me, Jeremy. As I said before, I respect you a lot, and you've been long enough, quite long with me, and I appreciate that. Someone that has been there and values this practice, it means a lot to me. I'm trying to do my best, and I'm glad that I have a community around that believes in this and still there with me. So my pleasure.
Thank you, Andres.
Thank you, my friend. See you in class.